Hello, and welcome to Sonata She Wrote. My examination of Die Schöne Müllerin has come to an end, and I'm going to continue by analyzing Schubert's final intentional song cycle, Winterreise, or A Winter's Journey. The poems in this cycle are again compositions of Wilhelm Muller, who would die the same year that Schubert composed these songs, in September of 1827, at just 33 years old. We discussed some of Muller's life in the previous cycle, but the set of poems which would become Winterreise were completed later in Muller's life. The initial set of 12 published in 1822, the year after he had married and settled down from a tumultuous youth, which involved traveling over much of Europe and even fighting in the Prussian military against Napoleon, eventually being stationed in Brussels and leaving his regiment in 1814, just shy of the 1815 Battle of Waterloo. As I said, the initial poems were a set of 12 published in Urania Taschenbuch auf das Jahr 1823, and this set of 12 is the initial order that Schubert experienced the poems in, and the order of the first 12 songs. You can see a chart from Lauri Suurpää's book, Death in Winterreise, on the screen that details the publication history. In 1823, 10 more poems appeared in Deutsche Blätter für Poesie, Literatur, Kunst und Theater. Finally, in 1824, the complete set of poems in its current order, the initial 12, the second group of 10, and 2 more, appeared in Muller's own book, Poems from the Posthumous Papers of a Traveling Horn Player, Volume 2. As you can see on the chart, Schubert's initial exposure to these poems was the first set of 12 in Urania, and his first set of 12 songs matches that order exactly. When he discovered Muller's book and the remaining 12 poems, he set those to music for a part 2 of the cycle, by necessity, in a slightly different order from Muller's. But in Winterreise, the order is not quite so crucial as it was in Die Schöne Müllerin, because these works are not bound as closely by a plot, but more by a shared theme. Suurpää has divided the cycle into 9 narrative and thematic groups, the first of which is Departure. This section includes the first 5 songs in the cycle, including the subject of this video, Gute Nacht. The narrator leaves the town, and in the context of the song, it seems the home, of his once beloved, and sets forth on his journey. Suurpää's remaining categories of the songs are The Continuation of the Journey and an Outpouring of Misery, Rest and Dreams, The Journey Continues, Continuation and Back References, Death as a Positive Option, which, in case it wasn't clear from my examination of Die Schöne Müllerin, that is not true. Death is not a positive option. Romantic artists from this period had a tendency to romanticize negative emotional states, reflecting on the idea of death and renouncing love, the choice of death, and the inability to find death. I think even in the first song, there are going to be ways in which this cycle is very relatable to all of us, and simultaneously, often representative of something which can make some of us, maybe not all of us, roll our eyes a bit. Personally, I think it's fine to experience both of those emotions at the same time. But before we jump into the music, let me just tell you about the recording I'll be using for this series. In Die Schöne Müllerin, I often found myself commenting and explaining about how the range and ability of Schubert's piano in the 1820s affected or enhanced the music. And so I thought this time I would like to use a recording with a period instrument. This recording is of the tenor Jan Van Elsacker and the pianist Tom Beghin, who is an expert on keyboards used by Haydn and Beethoven. This recording is the first made on a newly restored 1830 Gottlieb Hofner piano. If you'd like more information about the piano and the recording, I've linked a website below which includes Beghin's own writing about the instrument, piece, and the recording/performing process.
Fremd zieh ich wieder aus. Der Mai war mir gewohnt mit manchem Blumenstrauß. Das Mädchen sprach von Liebe, die Mutter gar von ihm. Das Mädchen sprach von Liebe, die Mutter gar von ihm. trübe, ihr Weg gehüllt in Schnee. Nun ist die Welt so trübe, der Weg gehüllt in Schnee.
The work begins with this repeated open fifth in the bass, and open sonorities are a continuous feature of the music throughout, creating a sort of unendurable tolling bell effect. The music forces the wanderer to move, not unlike the opening of Die Schöne Müllerin, though decidedly more negative. The music is both representative of and also creates the impetus to get up and go. The narrator is describing, briefly, his experience in this town. He came as a stranger, and after experiencing love and its ultimate failure, he departs again as a stranger. But notice how the music changes when he describes the mother and daughter. Susan Youens, who will again be one of our guides through the cycle, writes that the world in which the maiden spoke of love, the mother of marriage, was altogether different from the winter wasteland the wanderer now inhabits. The music briefly transforms into tonicizations of the median F major and submedian B-flat major, before returning to the desolate reality of the song. This alteration between a crushing minor mode reality and a glimpsed at major mode of the past will be one of several features of this cycle, along with the often repeating offbeat accents throughout the work.
Ich kann zu meiner Reise nicht wählen mit dir Zeit, muss selbst den Weg mir weisen in dieser Dunkelheit. Es zieht ein Mondenschatten als mein Gefährte mit. Es zieht ein Mondenschatten als mein Gefährte mit. Und auf den weißen Matten such ich des Wildes Tritt. Und auf den weißen Matten such ich des Wildes Tritt.
In the second verse, compare the new lines, companions which are created by the shadow of the moon, to the previous line of memories of love and approval from a faceless mother and daughter. That memory is as ephemeral and weak as these imagined companions. You may have also noticed one of the defining features of these tonicizations, and the reason I consider them that rather than modulations, is the nature of the cadences. Here, and continuing through the song, cadences in the major mode will be obscured by imperfection. The highest voice will always be the third or fifth rather than the tonic.
Was soll ich länger weilen, dass man mich trieb hinaus? Lass ihre Hunde heulen vor ihres Herren Haus. Die Liebe liebt das Wandern, Gott hat sie so gemacht. Von einem zu dem anderen, Gott hat sie so gemacht. Das Wandern, fein Liebchen, gute Nacht. Von einem zu dem anderen, fein Liebchen, gute Nacht.
Although there isn't a dynamic noted in this part of the score, the performer's choice to dramatically emphasize the anger inherent in this text, why should I stay only to be forced to leave, loose dogs are chasing me out of town, etc., is in perfect contrast with the second half of the stanza, marked pianissimo. Almost quietly, the narrator says to himself, "Love loves to wander," a second callback to the opening song of Die Schöne Müllerin.
Will ich im Traum nicht stören, wir schad deiner Ruhe, soll sollst meinen Tritt nicht hören, sacht, sacht die Türe zu. Schreib im Vorübergehen ans Tor dir Gute Nacht, damit du mögest sehen, hab ich gedacht. Schreib im Vorübergehen ans Tor dir Gute Nacht, damit du mögest sehen, an dich hab ich gedacht, an dich hab ich gedacht.
Again, the parallel major inserts itself with a sense of unreality. In one of the few mentions of Schubert's songs within the elements of sonata theory, Hepokoski and Darcy use this specific verse to illustrate the complexity behind viewing major and minor as opposites, or representations of positive and negative. They write that even these generalized descriptions can be insufficient when coming to terms with the expressive impact of an individual passage, or even an entire movement, in a major or minor work. Any specific effect is conditioned by the local context in which it appears. The context of a major or minor mode matters. In Gute Nacht, the narrator is putting on a brave face. He'll leave and not trouble you with his leaving. As he closes the gate to your yard, he inscribes Gute Nacht, good night, so you'll see that he thought of you one final time. Again, modernity is creeping into my interpretation of this cycle, but I can't help but think again of the immaturity inherent in this gesture. Although I do think Schubert was aware of the Miller's ineptitude and childishness in Die Schöne Müllerin, the lines are blurred more in Winterreise, but that need not influence our interpretation. No doubt we've all been childishly passive-aggressive, leaving a secret note or subtle gesture that those around us are supposed to interpret, because, after all, we're the main character. And then, one grows up and is embarrassed and a little amused at the absurdity of it, which is the effect I experienced when listening to the major mode section of this song. The dazzling brightness of F sharp to E, rather than the pervasive F to E of the rest of the song, emphasizes both the depth of feeling of the narrator and the absurdity of his actions. I hope you enjoyed this first video in my series on Winterreise. The next song is The Weather Vane, and should be out in the new year. For some end-of-the-year housekeeping, in 2024, I'm going to be stepping back, and rather than doing a video every week, sometimes 2 videos every week, I'll be decreasing to 1 video every 2 weeks and a Patreon exclusive video every month. Generally, the song cycle videos are a little shorter, so they may make appearances outside of the 2-week schedule, but unfortunately every week is just a little too difficult to balance with my other job. Again, if you'd like to support the channel, consider joining my Patreon at patreon.com/sonatashewrote. One of the reasons that's important is because I like to use good recordings in my videos, and that means that they are often copyright struck, which, that's the cost. But if you'd like to offset that, and in 2024 enjoy some videos just for patrons, you know what to do.